Welcome to Ace of Pentacles, your career strategy and workplace wellness podcast. I'm your host, Sara, and I'm so happy you're here. Join me every week as we investigate how people design and discover their way through their careers. Together, we'll explore the science of well-being at work and discover tools and strategies to help us do well and be well. Hi, welcome back to Ace of Pentacles. Today I chat with Victor Van Doorn. Victor is the founder of Sherlocked, a world-renowned experience design studio based in Amsterdam. Sherlocked is most known for elevating the medium of escape rooms from entertainment to meaningful immersive experiences. I wanted to chat with Victor because I'm very curious about how we tap into our creativity. I'm also very curious about our need to explore our imaginations, but also balance that with the practicalities of grounding our ideas into everyday reality. Whether that happens through a hobby, a side hustle, or in Victor's case, building a business that's been growing and thriving for over a decade. In this conversation with Victor, he shares his career story. He tells us about how he found his way to becoming a creative entrepreneur. He shares some career wellness advice, and we spend quite a bit of time talking about the importance of creativity in our work and in life. I got to share a bit more about my own journey, reconnecting with my curiosity, my imagination, and incorporating more play into my life. I hope you enjoy this conversation with Victor Van Doorn. All right, so hi, Victor Van Doorn.
Hello, Sara.
How's it going?
Very well. Thank you for having me.
Victor, you're the founder of Sherlocked, an escape room and one of Amsterdam's top 10 experiences in fun and games, rated on like TripAdvisor. And I did all this research and I was like, man, he's like really crushing it out there.
Thank you. Yeah, we really try. It's a whole team effort, and we've been doing it for 10 years, so it's nice to start reaping the benefits and seeing people very happy. But the second one, the people being very happy, that was the case from the start. Otherwise, we wouldn't have made it for 10 years.
Yeah, I hear that. All right, and then you're also someone who has really inspired me in the way that I approach my own talents in the short time that I've known you. And you've actually inspired me to think about teaching a little differently.
No way.
And
That's cool.
yeah.
How did that
Yeah.
happen? That's news to me.
Okay. So there's a few different conversations that we had. I think I was just picking your brain on like a few things, and I don't know, it got me thinking differently about the way that I approach curriculum design.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Was it our scheming to try and get you to be remote teaching in the in the first week, which, for the record, is not going to happen?
It's not
I
gonna
did
happen.
I did my best, but it was unsuccessful.
Yeah, so basically you inspired me to think about teaching differently by trying to get me to remote teach the first week of next semester. Yeah, that was pretty a good try.
Thank you. Yeah, I was adamant, and yet I failed.
Yeah. But hey, you got me thinking differently about teaching, so, you know.
Consolation prize. I'll take it.
That's right. Victor, I want to talk to you today about fun and play and creativity and curiosity, because what you do is you help people have more fun in life.
Yeah,
And
very true.
yeah, and we think about and by design, I think that makes your career fun and it makes what you do fun for you. And we think about work, or we've been conditioned to think about work and play as opposites, but we know that play and creativity and curiosity actually contribute significantly to our well-being. And so I want to talk to you today about your career, how you've designed your career, found your way to where you are today, and what advice you have for people who are looking to incorporate more creativity and more play into their lives and even into work.
Love it. Let's dive in.
All right. So, Victor, let's start here. Who is Victor? What do you do? Tell us a little bit about your career path and how you found your way to what you're doing today.
All right. I am 37 years old, and I've been an entrepreneur since I was 18. Started relatively young. I've been employed only by my parents. That's the only employment I've had before being self-employed. And my parents are also entrepreneurs, therefore. So that came, I think, by example through them. And I always thought I would be an inventor. That's one of the things that was pretty that resonated a lot with me even in my pre-teens. I was always thinking of new concepts, and I was kind of had the sense that that would not be a viable career because of also the maybe Dutch mentality, which I think is also the American, or to a large degree, the American mentality that good things come through hard work, um, and not getting distracted. And I think like aka focusing. And I think that has been the theme throughout my life. If you look at, I was writing to you, you'd asked me about my career path and the different things I'd done, and there's a very fast succession of different things in the early professional years. And I was a film producer. I then through that came up with a kind of cinematic way of looking at your life through an app. And then the savings that my parents had saved up for me to study. That was the prime. They'd always said like, we're going to have some savings for you and your sister, and you can use it to go to university or study, or you can use it to start your own company. And while I was doing my first 3 months of university, I also started my own company, and very quickly that got all the focus because like this opportunity for an interesting documentary came on my path, and then like on month 4 of my university studies, that took all my focus, and I didn't even take the effort to tell the university that I was not going anymore. So I was still paying for classes for a while longer, and until I said, okay, I really have to tell them now. I think it was also me trying to not being entirely sure about the decision until the decision was very evident, having not gone to classes for months. So yeah, and then I spent most of those savings on this app called Replay My Day, and it was a lot of work, and I don't have the temperament of being a coder, being a developer, programmer. Don't have the focus for that. So I was always reliant on other people, and I was very young, not really able to craft a vision and be demanding enough of others to deliver what was agreed. So I was this young child, or very enthusiastic young guy, and I think I misspent that budget a little bit, but my dad would say it was money well spent because it was very educational. Highlight of that app, which was kind of like a cinematic diary, it would make an animation of the movements you'd made on the map any given day, and add the photos that you've taken on that map, and it add the little notes that you've taken in different spots and add it on there. I think at the time we had a Twitter um, connection that would also place your tweets on that map. So it was kind of like a map-based diary, which Google Maps does now,
Oh.
10 years later, or 12 years later, has a really nice history tracking mode. That was that app. It was in 2010, and we were in our high moment. We were #1 app of the Dutch App Store, and at the time, I didn't really realize how special that was. Also, of course, the App Store was relatively young, and lots of different things followed after that in the world of apps, but I didn't follow along with it because by the time that I'd run out of money, I was also kind of out of motivation for it, and then this new thing popped up. Anyway, I'm digressing a lot, but the stories that I'm trying to tell is that it took a while until I landed this vehicle that's Sherlocked, which is I see as a vehicle from that kind of divergent creativity. The fun thing is that it all fits under that one umbrella of Sherlocked. So the same amount of dopamine and novelty that I would have otherwise have spent on different ventures, they all fit under the umbrella of Sherlock, and that's why for the first time in my life I've done something for more than 3 years.
Very cool. I was looking at the summary that you sent over that I asked for. I asked for your professional summary, and you sent over all the different things that you've done. And I was looking at this, and you're my first interview that's someone who's an entrepreneur. And I was looking at this and kind of thinking about how when we start a business, a venture, we get so committed to this idea and we're like, well, this is the thing I do now. And then you just keep working at it and working at it and working at it. And I can't even imagine. Well, I guess I can now, but when I started my coaching practice not long ago, I couldn't even imagine doing anything other than coaching, but I feel like it's just kind of pushed me into these different areas of doing different things. And I saw that very clearly laid out in your path that you did a bunch of stuff and then you got to Sherlock, and that's something that you've been doing for 10 years. What is that experience like as someone who's a builder, who's a creator, and kind of knowing, how do you know when something's no longer the thing anymore and you want to like pivot and do something different?
Yeah, I'm not good. I'm not very good at it. And then that's also actually an experience of grief as well, around letting things go. And what I mean with it, I'm not very good at it, is my father, who's a better example of this, at this than I am. He would always kind of repeat the chant from, I think it's Jim Collins, saying, "For everything you start, stop something else." And I think my Achilles heel, as well as one of my superpowers, is that I'm very optimistic. I see opportunities everywhere. I see possibilities. You could say I'm creative. And the downside, the pitfall of that, the Achilles heel, is thinking sometimes too optimistically about being able to do multiple things. So, like, it would have been more beautiful, more elegant to actually stop doing the app, replay my day, when I'd noticed that I was working on something else. But there was still this kind of wish to keep doing both the new thing and the old thing, to that it kind of just let it dwindle. And I remember there was a friend of mine, Samuel, who'd said, like, "Hey, you're not working on this app. How about open sourcing the code, so that other people can work on it?" And there was still too much maybe greed and kind of like this sense of hoping to maybe fulfill its potential at some point. And also, of course, I'd spent the money that my parents had saved up for me, so it felt difficult to give that away. But looking back, it would have been a far more beautiful thing to do with that code, which is now no longer relevant because it's like very aged, 12-year-old code.
Mm.
Um, but at the time, that would have been a beautiful thing to do. And the same went for another venture that I started after this app called Uncover Lab, which is a tattoo shop for objects, aka a laser engraving shop. And we're only now in the process of closing down that company, whereas it would have been more beautiful and elegant if I'd given it to my partner, my business partner, Seem, like 7 years ago. Maybe it would not, maybe it would still be going now. Who knows? Um, yeah, I think would be a healthy development for me to be better at stopping something.
Mm. It's wonderful to watch you reflect on it and think about it as it would have been beautiful if you had done that, as opposed to, it doesn't feel like regret. I think sometimes people feel regretful about things and we think about that as a negative thing, but I like the way you frame it. You're not framing it as regret.
Yeah, there's some melancholy there. So I
Mhm.
have definitely have some a melancholic, romantic tendencies, which serve me in other ways. But yeah, yeah, there's some melancholy there. I don't really. I think regret is not a great thing,
Mm.
because it's also kind of disrespectful to the things that you're grateful for, which you are now enjoying because of all those stupid things you did. So
Yeah, I
yeah.
agree. I love that quote that what was the quote? For everything you start, stop
Stop
something
something
else.
else. Exactly. I think it's uh, great to good to great from Jim Collins. I think it's from there.
Mm. Okay. I love that. All right. Thanks for sharing that and sharing a little bit about your journey.
Pleasure.
Sherlock just had its 10-year anniversary.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
That's so exciting. Victor, what have been some of the most challenging parts of creating Sherlock and getting it to where it is?
The first thing that comes to mind is that we were four creative guys, in the early first few years, all being very entrepreneurial, very creative, but kind of we could all be the creative director of the company, and none of us had the wish to be like the business lead. I was kind of the de facto marketeer because of some connections I had, and a tendency for me to think in a more commercial sense. So I think I was the most commercially thinking person on the founding team, but I also wanted to be a creative, and also wanted to, and I was, probably somewhere on the ADHD spectrum, having these ideas and then getting very, very excited about new ideas and wanting to chase that. And then I would often have put my co-founders in the position of where they're like, oh, Victor's already working on something else while we haven't even finished this, same theme as what we mentioned before. So there was some struggles around that at the time. There's a lot of positives around that as well, is that like the speed with which we created our first escape room without I think we had been to 3 other escape rooms, so we had very little examples of what could be done, and just our collective imagination really pumped out something very beautiful, something that works incredibly well, and still, like 12 years later, or no, 11 years later now, 10 and a half to be precise, it's still a classic, and people are still enjoying it. It's still running, which is strange and special in the world of escape rooms. Most first generation escape rooms have closed and been replaced for their real estate value by something else. But yeah, no, ours just keeps getting booked. So that's pretty cool. And that really was the product of, at the time, 3 creative guys, and the fourth, Pim, joined very soon after that, and he was a lead in the second creation, which was, we pumped out really fast after the first, and that was also a product of just having a lot of like creative juice and oomph in that founding team. And then the years that followed was much more struggle, and also we let ourselves be tempted by all kinds of projects with good sounding company names. So we would do something together with Google, which was great, and they had a good budget, and it was very tempting, because then it was like, oh, all of a sudden you have a lot of money on your bank account. But then what we didn't know yet is that we are the kind of creatives that like to spend all that money. So we didn't really, we didn't really have much of a financial benefit when all was said and done from that project, and yet we had lost like 8 months of our time that we could have spent on making our own creation. So they have a couple of challenges, and also powers that we enjoyed even pre-COVID, and then COVID came, which was a whole chapter on its own of
Yeah.
challenge. Lots of challenging aspects of that.
Yeah. Kudos for surviving through COVID.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's a huge, I didn't even think about that as I was thinking about your journey, but that's a really big accomplishment to have a business that's based on in-person experience and
Yeah.
having survived COVID.
Yeah. The government forced us to close and then allowed us to reopen, forced us to close, allowed us to somewhat reopen, somewhat close, fully close, reopen, and that was like devastating to our energy and also to the market. So yeah, I'm still not entirely healthy, fully recuperated from that hit on our energy. Something that is very healing is that we took that time. We took that time to make a lot of things. Some of them are on the shelf. They haven't seen the light of day, or they haven't really. We haven't launched them, and that's not the healing thing, actually. That's a troubling thing, but a funny detail, and again, exemplary of that easy first spark creativity, but hard to finish energy. The cool thing is, the thing that's healing is that throughout that period, we were dreaming up something called The Alchemist, which would be our third full-on production. So we created a full-on escape room in 2014. That was our first one. A year later, we did our second one. And then for years, we did more work for hire. And then we did one thing for ourselves in Rotterdam, which was with the wrong partner, and we actually said goodbye to very quickly. So all these kind of like interrupted flows. And then in 2019, the founding team dispersed. One went to the States after us asking him to take a step back, and the other, who actually took the lead in doing that asking, then very soon after that also went to the United States to live in your city in San Francisco, and I we explored an acquisition. We had an offer, and that felt weird to me somehow. Like first we explored it, and then when I'd had that initial conversation with the acquiring party, it felt like, oh, I still have something to do here with this brand Sherlock, with this beautiful location in this old monumental or historical building. And then I asked my co-founders, the last of which actually was recovering from a burnout that he'd acquired while trying to lead our company. Like he'd stepped into the CEO role, which we'd never really had. We were always kind of very by consensus, leading by consensus, and then at some point we said, okay, let's have someone lead, and then he volunteered. He wanted to take the lead, but then at the first thing that we disagreed on, which was this Rotterdam adventure with the difficult partner, he wanted to let go very quickly, and I wanted to see if we could own it ourselves. That caused so much energy that very quickly after that, when we had our first kind of like cash crunch after that, he had a burnout, or a very near one, and so he had to step back, and I decided to buy out my partners, which I'm still paying off. And a few months later, COVID hit, so that was tricky. At the time, I felt like shit, wrong decision. But now, sorry, I'm going all over the place with this story. Now that The Alchemist is finished, which we worked on for almost 4 years throughout COVID, and then post-COVID, lots of difficulties with the budget and prices rising and things not working the way we wanted, taking a lot longer time, and then we launched it and people loved it. So the healing thing is people's responses to that thing that we worked on for years.
That is the healing story, I think. I think it's a beautiful story. I started to notice some patterns in the way that you were describing this whole experience and this adventure you've been on. And it seems like it's been a combination of moving quickly and doing things fast, and also knowing when to slow down and when to pull away from something that's not meant for you and your business. And I think that requires a lot of knowing who you are, right? And so you keep talking about you guys were these creatives, and these partners maybe wanted to come in, or the project with Google, and it seems like you realized that wasn't your jam, even though on paper that may have sounded like very successful. That's the path to success. Like, you get to partner with a company like Google, or you get to, throw this name on your, portfolio of the people that you're
Yeah.
working with and the companies that you're working with. But it's really about knowing yourself and knowing how you operate.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's these one-off projects like the Google one, or even one that we did with the Rijksmuseum, whose team are wonderful partners and really wonderful to work with. But it was still a one-off experience that was, after a while, had to close, because that was the intention from the start. Then you're left holding, in a good case, some money, but mostly just lost time. That's for something that doesn't keep existing. Whereas our first escape rooms, the Architect and the Vault, they've existed now for 10 years, and the Alchemist will also exist for maybe decades to come. So in terms of transforming love and energy, attention and money into something that's worthwhile, investing it in something that's long lasting, durable, that makes me feel best. That makes me feel good. So that's what we'll be focusing on from here on out as well.
Wonderful, Victor. It sounds like for the past 10 or maybe even more years, you've really focused on developing this compass with you to figure out what's the right direction, what's the right way to go. What advice do you have for someone who's wanting to figure that out for themselves?
So if someone has my profile of like being relatively creative and distractible, I don't know what exercises there are for this, but I think it would have been good if I'd done some exercising and closing off processes, and being maybe some okay, maybe this is an exercise very typical of the ADHD profile, is hoarding Chrome tabs, or like browser tabs, building up more than 30 open tabs on your browser. And I just remember the sense of liberation if my computer had crashed or somehow I'd lost all those open tabs. First there was some like pain, and then there was this sense of like, oh, I'm moving much more flexibly now, much faster. So that if you feel the same, if you have that profile of like keeping everything open, keeping literally these threads open in your mind, just closing them and seeing how liberating that is. That's a good sense. That's a good exercise of realism, because the conceit that wanted me to that helped me or pushed me to keep all these threads open is like I still want to do something with this, which is exactly the same kind of conceit as I mentioned with the app. And just kind of like saying no, it's healthier to say no. You're not going to do something with that, and that's great. That's good. That's healthy for everything you stop something else. That is something to tinker with, to practice with, and even I'm still doing that. I'm practicing with that.
Nice. I really like how we were going to be talking about creativity and play, and this turned into a really deep conversation about letting things go, that, being comfortable with like letting go and focusing on what maybe is in your immediate future or something that's really inspiring you.
Cheers. Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm not an expert at it yet, but I'd like to be.
Okay. Victor, let's talk about creativity and fun and curiosity all at work. In your work, you get to
Hmm.
be curious, you get to be very creative, you get to incorporate play into your job. Tell us a little bit about your philosophy on work and how you think about what work and careers should do for someone.
So there's a couple of different roles within that company. Like my role, I have to, and the same as with Francine and a couple of other colleagues, we have to imagine what would be fun for other people.
Mhm.
And it helps to be able to have fun yourself. That's speaking of compasses, that is maybe the most valuable tool I have in my tool set is this compass, this sense of what's fun. And I've developed that by being very adventurous in my young years. So from the moment where I saw the movie Aladdin, where Aladdin climbs, like he lives on a rooftop. He doesn't have many earthly possessions, but he has his rooftop with his monkey, and they just have the most magnificent view, and they're happy. And that really inspired me. I think when I was like 7, really early on, it inspired me to seek out adventure and to actually, like literally, I would climb on rooftops and enjoy the view. And because I was a young kid, this was like started around probably 8 and climaxed during high school, where I would, me and my friends, we would stage these elaborate heists, like actual slightly criminal exploits of, for instance, the example that was maybe like the peak Aladdin in high school was that we had this math test coming up, and me and my best friend were not good at maths. We had 2 other friends in that group who were great at maths, but they were just along for the ride because they liked the adventure. We'd looked at the number code of the briefcase of the maths teacher during class. So one of us had distracted the teacher, and I think I read that his briefcase was open at a certain number. I even remember there was something with 48, but anyway. So we knew how to open his briefcase, but of course he was always with his briefcase, except for in the breaks. But in the break times, the door of the classroom would be locked. And later on in this whole career of mischief, we actually had a copy of the key of the classrooms, but at this time we didn't yet. So we had to get into the classroom in an interesting way, which was through the air conditioning shafts. Through there was like a crawl space, crawl space shaft. There was a crawl space between the roof and the ceiling of the second floor, and the second floor is where the math classroom was. So we crawled through the dust to go through this event and then climbed down the classroom, which was not no, it was not a low classroom. It was quite high. So we loaded each other, and then we had a friend looking on the outside in the hallway on the lookout. I mean, and we were able to open the briefcase, and we were hoping to catch a copy of the upcoming math test, but we could only found the original that wasn't copied yet. And what's interesting at the time, like this was an older man who had not like got grown accustomed to using Microsoft Word or a publisher. So the way he would assemble tests was cutting paper strips from previous tests and then adjusting the numbers, and then with copy pasting, literally pasting it on a new sheet. So there was like this original was like a masterpiece. It was like actual 3D in there, and there was no way that we'd be able to take it and he wouldn't notice. So new plan B was came into effect, where we had to go back through crawl space and then make our way with the test stuck under our t-shirt to the library, which had a copying machine. This was, of course, pre-digital cameras. So we copied in the library, and then the bell rang for the break to be over, and so that was a bit shit, because then the class was coming back in, and we were not at the classroom yet. And then we were in the classroom, hoping that he wouldn't find out yet. And I crawled underneath the desks underneath his desk, and then my friend distracted him so that I could put the original back in the briefcase. Yeah. And this was a lot of work. This was maybe more work than actually studying for the test, but it was more fun. And I
I was
am,
just gonna say, I think it would have taken less time for you to just
yeah,
study.
yeah, but where's the fun in that? So I
Oh
think
man.
yeah, I'm positive that a lot of the ideas, or the sense of what works in terms of adventure design, it comes from having done it myself.
Victor, you know, I wondered about like what makes someone want to like create escape rooms and like do this for a living. And you just answered my question. You were born to do this work.
I think so too. Yeah. There was so like in summary, I took movies more seriously than other people. I wanted to
Hmm.
live cinematically. I tried to do that, and then after having done that for a while, turns out that making adventures for other people is also a very worthwhile activity.
Yeah. Wow. Well, thank you for sharing with us what the experiences that kind of initially inspired you, to take this path. Who are some of the people that have inspired you along the way? Who are people that you maybe mentors that you've had or people that you kind of look up to or are inspired by?
Yeah, so apart from all the movies, so apart from Aladdin, the Thomas Crown Affair had a big impact on me, which was the most elegant heist ever. It's very worth seeing. The 1999 one, not the one from the 60s, but the Pierce Brosnan one. But very, very importantly, my dad. My father created when I was 11, so before all these high school adventures, but after my infatuation with Aladdin. Um, Also, of course, like big infatuation with Jasmine, who was his kick-ass princess, very important as well. I think my sense of romance came from a lot came from that movie. But anyway, my father, when I was 11, created a treasure hunt for me and my friends, and that was so exciting that I think that also kind of imprinted on me something like, oh, there's energy here, there's joy here. And that was one of the early examples I experienced of someone having constructed some adventure for me. And I think that was very important. My dad was also very important in my formative years in other ways. Like, he always challenged me or invited me more to kind of get out of my comfort zone. So he's a public speaker, he's a teacher, and I think when I was for the first time, when he asked me to, I think, recite a poem, I think I was 8, like really young, in front of a group of maybe 200 people, at one of his lectures. So, and I found that very exciting. I found it scary, of course, but also very exciting. And then later on, when I was working in his company or my parents' company, I would, I think from when I was 17, I would give lectures myself, or host sessions. So I think my dad's pretty fearless, and I am relatively fearless, maybe in his footsteps. I like to seek out things that are tricky or challenging. And from my mother, just a sense of calm. I think I'm very relatively meditative. I've, I've people ask me often if I meditate, and then my instinctive answer is no. But I think just like innately, I just like to stare in front of myself, in front of me, for what feels like hours, but thankfully ends up being just a couple of minutes. But still. I have that maybe more from my mother than my father. And other influential figures, I think my co-founders we had a big impact on each other in the early years. I think so.
Okay. Well, I was gonna say, you do have a very calming presence. And the time that we've spent together, like, you have this energy. It just kind of calms people, I think. At least it
Yeah,
did for me when we were hanging out.
wonderful. Yeah, I've heard that a lot, and it's not something that is conscious at all.
Mm.
Um, there were two things throughout my life that I've had to, through external reflection, become aware of. That's one of them. And the other one is a sense of enthusiasm and how that's not that's not normal for everyone. So when I was a filmmaker, which is something we haven't even talked about, but after high school, I had a film production company with my one of my best friends, Muriel, and she and I would, you know, spent half the time making videos for other companies, which was kind of the boring stuff, and then other half of the time we would spend that money making our own productions. And we were working on a kind of short film, a fiction short film, yeah, that had a shoot in Paris with some Dutch actors, and they were all in it for the fun of it, and they were all donating their time for like a symbolic amount of money. I think they were getting paid 100 euros or something like really a symbolic amount, and then there was a rap party, a rap dinner, which was in Paris, and I think my dad actually treated the crew to it because we didn't have any money left. And then the main actress, she did a toast, and she said she thanked everyone, and then when it came time to thank me, she said, "Oh, she said, like Victor, for your inexhaustible enthusiasm." And that was a moment where I was like, "I'm exhausted. What are you talking about?" uh, But apparently more than many other people, I'm very enthusiastic, and that gets apparently, and I didn't realize this at the time, and I still forget it often. It is what gets people on board. It's what gets people to want to join a project. Is sometimes just because I'm so enthusiastic about it.
Yeah, for sure. I've also noticed that in my work is the more, and I think this is, I think
You
like you
have
said,
this too, yeah, yeah, yeah.
I get like really excited about things and then pretty soon like I don't even realize the moment at which like everyone's committed to an idea and then I'm like, "Wait, what are we doing?" And everyone's like, "Well, this was your idea, Sarah." And I'm like, "Really?" Like so
Yeah,
yeah. Yeah.
I'm not surprised. I'm not surprised. How's your own relationship to play and fun?
Mm, good question. Um, I think I used to be very playful when I was young and you know, adult adulting happened.
Oh
So
no.
I mean, I never tried to like steal like a math test and like do this whole elaborate scheme. But I remember when I was young, we had a backyard and my friends used to come over and we'd pretend we were like pirates and we'd play like Power Rangers and like, I don't know, we do a lot of imaginative like pretend play.
Yeah.
And I really, really enjoyed it. And I think I lost that as I got older. But like I reconnected with it. I think I have like a playfulness in the way that I just engage with people and I get that feedback a lot is like you're very professional, but you're also like playful and fun. And so I like that about myself. I think I've lost over time at one point I realized I've kind of lost my sense of like wonder
Oh.
and kind of like magic in the world. And so for the past several years, I think I like for the past 10, 12 years, I've been trying to like reconnect with that.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
How was the how was the College of Extraordinary Experiences for you in
Oh,
that
it
sense?
was so great. It was so great. You know, I feel like everyone would ask me, what did you do? Like what did you do? What is this place? And a lot of my friends are I guess they're not like this was the first time I was meeting people and spending time with people where I feel like I didn't have to really explain a lot of the way that I wanted to see the world and the way that I wanted to engage with the world.
Hmm.
Because a lot of my friends are very, they're like, well, here's the practicalities of life. It isn't, they're very practical and serious. And not a lot of my friends are very playful or imaginative.
Oh,
I know, I know. And they're wonderful people. They're wonderful people, but they're all very like we exist here and let's just go to work and it's very like just doing the thing, doing life, right? And so meeting all those people at the College of Extraordinary Experiences, I was just like, "Oh my gosh, there's all these people who like are curious about the world and about, what's beyond and like and experiencing the essence of life and getting curious about it. And there's all this like really interesting stuff that I learned, but it was mostly the people that I really connected with.
I can
Yeah.
imagine. That's so funny. It's like the College of Extraordinary Experiences is already a success before the classes have started, just because of the people it attracts. Uh,
Exactly,
yeah.
exactly. Um, yeah, I think some of it is that we're not encouraged as adults to like we walked around in like Harry Potter robes, Victor, for like a week. And we had like rings and we had like these fun little things that, are very playful and imaginative and we're not as adults in this world, like when we're here, doing a podcast or going to work to a meeting, we're not encouraged to think about things differently.
True, but I was about to say, like to compound on, like we were wearing these Hogwarts robes, and I wanted to add to that, like we had a potions master in the dungeons who would make these concoctions for us, friendlier type than Snape, Michael, um, and and so, but we can have those kinds of people in our daily lives as well. It's fun to kind of see them in that kind of mythical light. So who's your potions master? For many people, it's their local bartender many people have kind of a relationship with that person, because they frequent a certain spot often, and it's kind of nice to see all this in this kind of like magical lens.
Yeah, I
Like
really like that.
who's your Dumbledore who opened your world to new
Yeah,
magic?
I like that. I think that's a very I think that's a good way of looking at it. It's
Yeah,
like
maybe you can
in
be. Oh,
your
sorry,
everyday life. Sorry, go ahead.
I said maybe you can be this person for others, and I
Mm,
think you probably already are.
I think to some extent, yes. I think so, but I think it's hard. I think, a lot of my clients, they're very much like we're so the way we look at our day to day and our life, we have to live in this world and we have to make money and we have to have jobs and the job pays the bills, but it might like not be interesting or inspiring or, help me be creative. And so it's hard to kind of undo a lot of the beliefs that we've been taught to
Mm.
believe in.
Yeah, yeah,
And sometimes I have difficult conversations with people where people are like, you know, work is work. Like it's supposed to be transactional. It's supposed to be this thing you get up and you go do it and then you come home and you live the rest of your life. Like the rest of your life is your life. And I can't get on board with that because I'm like, wait, you spend at least 8 hours of your day, right? In this place doing this thing. And it's like, how can you make that how is that transactional? Like,
yeah. You have to
I
close
don't
off.
understand that.
Yeah, you have to close off a lot of doors in your mind for it, and you have to kind of stunt yourself a little bit, or numb yourself a little bit to be that compartmentalized. I mean, I've never been in that position, so I've never experienced that compartmentalization. Um, probably wouldn't work for me. And but whether you have work compartmentalized or not, it is worthwhile to try and make it as fun as possible because of exactly what you said. You spend such a big portion of your life doing it, so many of
Yeah,
your hours in your life. So yeah, whether you
yeah,
clock out at five or not, the hours before that, they can be fun to some degree.
yeah. I agree. Um, so in meeting with people who do creative things for work, like yourself, I've learned that a lot of it is about getting your brain to think in different ways.
Mm.
And just like you just said about, who's your local potions master? We had Michael at the castle. And it's like maybe it's your local bartender, right? Um, and we know that the brain loves to go on autopilot. So a lot of the reason why people do just get up and go to work and do their thing and then come home and they're just collecting a paycheck, right? It's because our brain is on autopilot and it's hard for us to see beyond the reality that we've already created for ourselves. So if you spent years and years and years doing the same thing over and over again and being in the same situations in the same environments, you might feel stuck in this pattern. So, what advice would you have for someone who wants to bring more creativity, fun, magic, play into their lives? Like, what's a low effort way to do that?
You've already given it. It's just deviating from the path. So imagine, the Truman Show where everything's scripted around him and he's the only person who's real. The other people are actors. And then as soon as he starts behaving irrationally and kind of deviating from his routine, then that's when like all things start going awry, and actually that's the path to his liberation. Same like also in the multiverse movie that came out a few years ago or a year ago, Everything Everywhere All at Once. It's like
Yeah.
the way you change reality is by doing something random, and
Mm.
I think that's one way of looking at that is metaphorically as like you change your own life by doing something, getting out the groove, because the grooves they deepen if you're thinking in terms of like a record.
Mhm.
These grooves deepen the more you stay in them. So the longer you stay in them, the harder it is to deviate and to unlearn a habit or to create a new habit. So like there's no better time than now to really branch out, do different parts, and in a safe way to do that is just to go to work in a different way, to just
Yeah.
say someone who you never talk to, I'd love to treat you to lunch. Um, Reach out to people from who you haven't spoken to a long time. Go for a run with them and talk, like refreshing your input, because
Mhm.
refreshing your input will refreshen your output.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah. Just like little things. Go, have lunch somewhere different. Go grab a friend from work and go to have lunch with them and have a conversation that you normally would not have. Yeah, I love that.
Cheers.
Victor, what what do you do for well-being at work? How do you stay well in your work?
Making a done list. Um, I also make to-do lists, but I'm now more aware of the psychological dangers of them, because as a relatively creative person, I will always think of more things to do than I can execute on. Just what I mentioned earlier, I always see possibilities, and that means I can very quickly like draft an entire page full of to-dos, and that's kind of setting yourself up for disappointment. So I'm more aware now than I was in the past of that tendency of my brain to see possibilities. And what what I'm training to do is to keep the upper part of my page, when I'm writing a to-do list or when I'm writing notes, keep the upper part of a page available for the things that after I've finish the meeting, then I distill the three things, or maybe sometimes just the one thing that I want to get done on top of that. And then I write a big box in that. And then after having done it, like doing a big check mark there is kind of the satisfaction that helps me move on to the next thing. Yeah, and sometimes when I feel like not being as productive as I'd like to be, then I go back in the past few days and I write a done list, and then it's always more things that I've done than I remember. Yeah. What was your question again? Sorry.
That was perfect. What do you do to practice wellness
Oh
with
yeah,
your
yeah,
work, in your line of
yes.
work? And a done list is a great tool. I love that. I think I'm gonna start making a done list.
Nice.
Yeah.
And workout. I love having my just kind of endorphins flowing. Is it endorphins or serotonin? Which comes from exercise?
Endorphins.
Thank you. I love feeling them flowing, and it's kind of funny. Sometimes when I just like with the grooves, the longer you don't work out, then the harder the obstacle feels to doing it. And then, but also the longer you've not done it, and then when you have overcome that obstacle and done it, then you feel a lot better, even better than when you work out every day, I must say. So even though I wish I'd never get in those ruts of like spending a week or even longer not moving, then when you flip that and then you start moving again, Oh, that feels great.
I'm so glad that you and I got to chat and talk about all these different things, not just creativity and play, but something that I'm actually very passionate about, which is what we started talking about is letting go of things in order to make room for other things and spend your energy wisely and in ways that is going to result in the outcomes that you want. Yeah.
Here, here.
Anything else you want to chat about before we end the call?
Yeah, I can say a little bit about the benefits of playfulness in creativity and also in just kind of more normal kind of work. We've gotten such grateful responses from corporate partners that we do some workshops with and just challenge them in a 5 minute workshop to think of a game with, say, two rules, and everyone surprises themselves just by putting the game rules on post-its. Everyone surprises themselves with what they come up with, and then we play the games actually that people have come up with, and there's so much creativity there just lying under the surface. So I would invite anyone listening to maybe you can Google the three rule game, the two rule game. It's actually just a very nice practice of discovering how easy it is to make a game. Just a game is basically you have a goal and you have rules that obfuscate or make it difficult to reach that goal, but you have to make it difficult in a fun way. And because we've all been children and we've all, to some degree, played as children, we can access it relatively quickly. So even like something super simple, like you have this. I see the plant behind you. The game would be to carry the plant from one side of your room to the other side, but the obstacles or the rules are that you are blindfolded and you can only use your right hand, for instance. Well,
Wow.
maybe the plant in this case would be too dangerous, but
Yeah,
something like it.
that's a huge plan.
But something as simple as that, you can actually, when you try it, turns out to be a lot of fun.
Yeah,
And
okay.
there's infinite amount of those kinds of games that people can come up with. And it's very liberating, and it also gets productivity going, gets creative juices going. So yeah, give it a try.
Yeah, I'm thinking of all the really boring work meetings that I've been in my whole life. How just like doing something like that as an icebreaker. Like you have your typical icebreakers that are like getting to know you stuff, but like just doing something as simple as that can like completely change the vibe of any meeting, any kind of moment that people are in together.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Yeah.
All right. Well, Victor, once again, thank you, thank you, thank you. If people who are listening to this want to get in touch and work with you, what's the best way to get a hold of you? What are you doing now? What are you working on and how can
Oh
people
yeah.
work with you?
I love you were about to do like a very small question of how can people contact you, and then what are you working on now? It's like a big question.
Yeah. Yeah. Let's talk
So
about that
so to be congruent with an insight that I had that I mentioned earlier, that we want to focus on our own projects, the way that we are now trying to deal with the very interesting temptation of other companies wanting to work with us is that we have a team for that. It's most like I like, for instance, we're now working with an interesting partner in Singapore. I think there was directly after the college that I went there for the first site visit, and so I'm involved in the first meetings, and then there's actually multiple teams that we can entrust the project with. We have the same with a new collaboration with the Rijksmuseum, which is kind of our national big museum. It's like our version of the Met, and was involved in the initial meeting. So was Francine, and now we have this really good project leader who's also this very creative mind on it, and Francine just checks in with them like every month. So we're trying to cope and to make sure that our own time is cleared enough so that we can work on our long-term own autonomous projects. And to answer your question, what are you working on now? Right now, one of the autonomous projects, or the what I mean with autonomous is that it comes from us. It doesn't come from an invitation from another company. Is something that may or may not happen, which of course is always the case. It's just more explicitly the case now, we have this opportunity for a beautiful underground space in our historical building that's become available. There's this beautiful kind of lots of arched pathways in there. You've seen a picture of it, right?
Yeah, yeah. It's beautiful. It's gorgeous.
It's very appealing, and the building proprietors had asked. They put it out for like proposals. They'd called for proposals for a cocktail bar, which I think the space is very suited for. But us being us, of course, we wanted to make that an enchanted mystery cocktail bar where every drink that you order comes with an adventure, like a micro escape room with a
Yeah.
cocktail, or a cocktail that unlocks a micro escape room. And the most emblematic example that I can give is there's this whiskey cocktail that we dreamt up. It's actually called the whiskey, and it comes served with a big block of ice, and inside that big block of ice is this beautiful vintage key frozen, and it comes also with this small vault, like a safe that's served with it, and the challenge is to crack that vault before the key is released, because like the ice will melt, of course, and that's a certain amount of time. And then if you opened the vault, the mini safe, by the time that the vintage key is unfrozen, then in the vault you have the instructions of where to use the key, and then together those can help you unlock a secret space in this bar. And that's where the kind of culmination slash finale of your experience will take place.
Oh,
And
that sounds so fun. I want to go to this bar.
yeah, yeah. Well, if your listeners want to co-invest, we are taking investment in it.
Okay.
The thing that's not certain yet is that we haven't won this opportunity yet. So the building owners are looking at different possibilities, and yeah, I think we are one of the three parties that are pitching for it, and I suspect that we are by far the most creative one. But these are people who are also enjoy stability, and they know us a little bit. And over the past 10 years, especially during COVID, of course, we've had some challenges. Them too. Um, so yeah, we've actually been relatively stable in the last year, thanks to The Alchemist, for the first time in the whole 11 years, like having quite a bit of money to spend. We all spend it. Like I'm very good at spending money, but the cool thing is that we keep improving the money the profit that we make. We reinvest it, and so not only is The Alchemist now better now than a year ago, we're also saving up to make our older games even better, and also now we have a little bit of money to invest in the cocktail bar concept if it goes ahead. And it's so fun. Like we have other people who have kind of reacted again to not just actually this is not the enthusiasm that I exude over it, because this was on social media, just the ideas itself. But there's a lot of people who reacted to those ideas on Instagram who say like, hey, where can I invest, which was amazing. And some people contributing. We have our one celebrity fan who I asked, would you like to contribute a cocktail adventure creation for it, and he's delighted to do so, which I'm just really riveted by. So even if we don't win it, which I would be sad about, but even if we don't, then this concept should see the light of day. So maybe we'll just go looking for another space, maybe in London, maybe in New York, maybe in San Francisco, who knows?
Yeah, come to San Francisco. I wanna come visit Amsterdam. I've been to Amsterdam a few times, but that was before you and I knew each other. And I want to come visit, and I want to try I want to do the escape room. I want to do the Alchemist, and
Yes, come
hopefully
over.
have a maybe come by when you're ready with those cocktails, the whiskey.
Exactly. Give us give us half a year or a year, because
Okay.
like we try to launch things relatively early. We also did that with The Alchemist, kind of deliberately prematurely, as an open beta with discounted tickets, so that we can already be open and we can learn from user input. And we're going to do the same with the cocktail bar.
Awesome.
This is adage. I'm sorry, we're trying to close up, but I keep thinking of new things. There's this adage from your neck of the woods. I think it's Reid Hoffman, who said that if you're not embarrassed by your first prototype, that you're testing too late. Is that
Ah,
is that Reid Hoffman? I'm not sure. It's one of the tech gurus.
yeah.
But yes, if you're not embarrassed by your first prototype in escape rooms as well, you're testing too late, because This you can only do so much in your head of what you think will be fun, and user input is so informative that you have to get it as soon as possible.
Okay, well, I'm here for user input when you need it.
Nice, nice. Let's go do some research over cocktails. Or actually, the
That's
cocktails
great.
are the research. Yep.
All right. Well, thank you so much for your time and for sharing all of your journey and sharing such good advice. And I'll see you soon, Victor.
Thank you for having me. See you soon.
All right. Bye.
Ciao.